Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special meeting of Oldham County Fiscal Court. I'm David Vogel, Judge Executive. We're happy to have you here today for this morning's special meeting. First thing we'd like to do is ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to ask our Fiscal Court Clerk, Denise Clark, to please call the roll.
Magistrate Likens.
Here.
Magistrate Tice.
Here.
Magistrate Harrison.
Here.
Magistrate Greenwell.
Here.
Magistrate Hounds.
Here.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Here.
Magistrate Dye.
Here.
Magistrate Logston.
Here.
Judge Vogel.
Here. Having all members of the Fiscal Court present, this meeting is now in session. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I see there aren't really many members of the public here this morning, so I'm going to skip public comments and go on to the first item of business here on our agenda, and that has to do with the discussion of the Oldham County Courthouse. I'm going to open this discussion with a short statement. In the late 1990s, under the direction of the legislature, the Administrative Office of the Courts began a program to either build or renovate courthouses in Kentucky. Since then, 70 new courthouses have been built in Kentucky. The last legislature authorized the renovation of the Oldham County Courthouse, and a project development board was formed and given responsibility for this project. The board began meeting in December of 2018. Although a number of suggestions were made about moving the courthouse out of downtown LaGrange, an initial decision by the Project Development Board was to keep the courthouse at the same location it has been in Oldham County since the 1830s. Since then, several design options have been considered with and without keeping the so-called historical section at the front of the courthouse. That section said to be the second oldest standing courthouse structure in Kentucky. The possibility of replacing the entire courthouse with a new building generated objections from residents and others who emailed their concerns to the chairman of the Court Standards Facilities Committee, Chief Justice John Minton. The Court Standards Facilities Committee, which is made up of 10 individuals, is the group that issues final approval to proceed in regard to new courthouses in Kentucky. In March of this year, the Project Development Board voted 5-1 to approve removing the entire courthouse building, including the so-called historical portion of the courthouse, in favor of an entirely new two-story building. The design was to have been considered in June by the Court Standards Facilities Committee, but that meeting was postponed because of the coronavirus. This month, after receiving word that the county was after receiving word that the county was not likely to have its design approved if it did not include the historical part of the building, the Project Development Board decided in August to try to keep the oldest section by moving the building further to the center of the north half of the courthouse square. That decision has resulted in additional professional architect fees of more than $100,000 and further delayed this project. Last week, the estimate for the construction of the courthouse, including moving the oldest section, was received from the construction manager. The projected cost for the courthouse, including the cost of moving the historic structure, is now estimated to be $29 million. At current interest rates, the amount that could be borrowed to finance the courthouse project and to stay within a $1.6 million annual rent authorized by the legislature is $26 million. This leaves the project over budget. The Administrative Office of the Court says it cannot go forward to the Court Standards Facilities Committee for final approval while we are this far over budget. They've asked that Fiscal Court enter into an agreement of understanding which obligates the county to be responsible for the amount over budget connected to keeping the historical building. We'll discuss this in just a minute, and I'll have Mr. Clark go further through the finance with you. But the options before the Fiscal Court this morning, as I see them, are these. Fiscal Court agrees to pay for the amount associated with keeping the historic building and hopes that when it meets after the first of the year, the legislature will authorize a higher use allowance to cover the deficit. Option number 2 would be to look to contributions to be forthcoming from Preservation Kentucky and others who waged a very serious campaign to get the Court Standards Facilities Committee to agree to keep the historical section. Or number 3, the Fiscal Court refuse any additional amount requested through a memorandum of understanding from AOC. And this option will likely result in discontinuing the historical part of the building and subsequently returning to the previously approved 2-story design. At the present time, a temporary courthouse is being built in the old IGA building in Crestwood. The current plan is to have the courthouse across the street here on Jefferson Street demolished beginning after the court facilities are moved to the IGA building in Crestwood in either January or February. We need this decision to be made since continuing the delay of building the courthouse will only result in the allocated funds going not as far, because we all know the cost continues to creep upward, and there's also the possibility of interest rate risk. The current amount that can be bought by the current interest rates is about 26 million, and they'll say we're up at 29. So we don't want, if interest rates were to move up, the amount that could be financed in the current plan might be less than 26. So all that being said, I'd like Mr. Clark to go through what the actual moving parts of this projection are. I say projection because that's what we're dealing with here, and there are many moving parts involved in this consideration. So, Stan, would you like to go ahead?
Okay, we got I believe everybody has a breakout that shows the estimated cost of just moving the courthouse, what basically added to the cost that we already had. And it comes to just under $2 million. And the biggest part of that is obviously it affects demolition of the building. It's much easier to just demolish everything and haul it away versus selective demolition and to preserve part of it. And that, along with the things you have to do just to move it, adds about $1,165,000 cost just to the demolition part of it and saving that part and moving it. Then there's other allowances, you know, when you move it, what you're going to have to do to the brick and whatnot. And, you know, and obviously there's insurance and there's the construction manager's fee on top of all of that. And one thing I point out, of the $1,959,000, he put in a 10% contingency, which is $166,000, because talking to him, he really, you know, he asked a couple of different people for bids. He only received from Stephen Edwards a bid, and then he worked from there thinking, okay, if Edwards' part of it is this, obviously when you bid it out, hopefully we'll have more movers. But then that $2 million, when you add then just extra design fees and extra issuance costs of a larger debt and stuff, you land up about $2.4 million more than we thought we were on the third estimate. This is estimate number 4. And just to be clear, the third estimate was $110,000. If you use the interest rate, same interest rates, but I'm using 2.06%. We were 110,000 over budget then, much closer. And obviously, talking to them, a lot of this depends on decisions made throughout the construction. Finishes are a big part of it. You know, putting marble in versus different woods and types of woods, and the doors and stuff can get extremely. The new one budget has $3.5 million for what's going inside, finishing the courthouse, staircases and whatnot. So there's opportunity to swing this either way. You go in there with marble floors and this and that when they're high. We could be more than, you know, this approximate 2.4 million higher, or we could bring it in a little bit lower. The judge did such a good job explaining numbers and stuff. I don't want to repeat that, but I'll answer any questions.
Measure Likens.
Thank you, Judge. Is there any contingency built in the $26 or $29 million estimate?
Yes. The total contingency built into the 29 million is 2.4 million, 10% of the actual construction cost.
Thank you.
Measure Harrison.
Thank you. In order to move the historical part of the current courthouse, there has to be another foundation constructed. Is there enough room to do that before the old historical part is moved, or do we have to move it, set it temporarily, build a foundation, then come back and move it onto the foundation?
I do not have a clue.
I think I can possibly answer that. I think the oldest building have to be moved twice, a little bit. I mean, the major thing is actually, getting it up on rollers or tires or something. They get it elevated on a movable platform. They're going to have to probably go east and then come back and go west to create enough space to put the foundation in.
Go east and park it temporarily.
Yes, right.
Thank you.
So, any other questions about this? I mean, I feel that I would like to stay on track with this and take a chance, if you will. It's possible that there's enough moving parts in here that it would not come up as high as has been estimated. And the other thing is that I do have what I feel are reasonable assurances within the legislature that our use allowance will be increased. We have a timing issue here in the sense that we do have a Court Standards Facility Committee meeting I thought had been canceled, but it's actually still on for next week, next Friday. Basically, depending on what happens at this meeting, I believe, is what it boils down to. Or it could be pushed back to the 1st of December. But as I mentioned earlier, a design had been approved back in March that by the Project Development Board that was going to go to the Court Standards Facilities Committee in June. And then the coronavirus pops up, and the governor basically canceled all meetings of the state legislature. There were no, the courthouses closed, everything stopped on us at that point. And so if we don't keep pushing this forward, we could be as much as a year behind the original schedule. And we all know from doing things here that the cost of everything continues to creep. And we certainly don't want our the value of our 1.6, the 1.6 would stay the same, but what it would purchase is going to be less the further this thing creeps forward. So we'd like to get a decision. I feel that I've had, and I really can't discuss what who and what I've talked about with in regard to the legislature, but I feel that there's a very strong possibility that we would get enough of the use allowance raised to cover all, or at least a significant portion of it. And in the event that that failed entirely, the question would be how much, if all these numbers worked out exactly as have been estimated, and we all know that estimates, can go up or down. We do have some control over this in regard to the contingency fee, Brent mentioned, in the larger budget for the main courthouse, and also in the degree of finishes. And, but don't want to, Formica counter instead of a, something else, a wood counter on, if we can avoid that. But there's enough moving parts in here where I don't think we would get stuck holding a big expense. And right now, that expense in the worst-case scenario as presented at this point would be that the court would have to generate about 1.7, is that right, 170,000 a year to offset the shortfall from the state allocation.
190,000 a year.
190,000.
Yeah, if we were to finance the difference, our payments would be about 190,000 a year at 2.06%.
At 2.6, right.
Judge, I had another observation, I guess. If we happen to go over, as way estimates, sometimes engineers' estimates are not very accurate. If we happen to go to $32 million, what would be that case in this? And I guess what I need to know is how much, if we made a motion today to approve the additional expenditures, how much would that have to be in the motion today? I mean, do I make a motion that we approve $2 million or $3 million? I've heard all kinds of numbers. 1.7, $190,000 a year. How do we move forward with a motion for this?
Let me venture a guess.
Thank you.
The difference we're getting is because we're moving the courthouse, okay? So when they figured out, the AOC is unique. They tell you how many square feet you gotta have this, you gotta have these courtrooms and stuff. And then the bid came in, okay, this is what this stuff costs per square foot. And that's gonna cost X, which means it's gonna be $1.6 million cost to finance it. Now, in your case, we sort of know what moving the historic part is. Say that with everything thrown into it, let's say it stays at the $2.4 million, but then we come in another $2-3 million on top. I would say we would have a good argument to go back and say, hey, your $1.6 million allowance to begin with wasn't realistic because the wrong square foot cost, today's square foot cost is higher. In other words, it's not anything we change. It's your courthouse exactly the way you wanted it built. It wasn't because we threw extra finishes or doing any of that. It's just, inflation or whatever, and then make an argument there. I think what they're looking for the meeting is that they're basically saying, here's a budget, say 29 million, and they're looking, saying you can afford 26-something million, and they want court to say, we'll make up the difference between those two numbers.
Which is 2.4, 2.6?
Well, 29,130,000 is the latest estimate. And,
Including moving the courthouse.
and 26,720,000 is what the current projection, by Bard, the investment firm, says we could borrow at $1.6 million based on the current interest rates. So you're basically looking at $2,410,000.
That's the number I got. The way I see it, the worst case is we're gonna spend out $2,410,000 and get a new courthouse. And if we don't do that, we're gonna be sitting on our hands for a couple of years, and this money could go somewhere else, I guess. I don't know. Is that possible? That we don't get a courthouse if we don't come to an agreement today?
No.
No, that's totally wrong.
I wouldn't say that. I'd say it just has to be scaled back from what the current design is.
Okay.
And I do think what they're asking for, was us to cover the cost associated with moving the old building. And that's what I think they're asking for.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing at play today is the old courthouse building, the historical part of it.
Right.
If we don't approve this additional expenditure, everything else moves forward for the new courthouse. That stays on track, and we continue moving with that. It didn't stop anything.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, it doesn't slow it down. It just removes that piece of the puzzle for the time being until we get something done through the legislature.
Right, if we don't approve standing as, let's say, the final guarantor of the extra expense of moving the old courthouse, then I think the likely solution is we have to go back to the two-story model that had been approved in March. And, but to say, I do believe the legislature, when given the opportunity, and they're not going to meet till January and February, so that budget's not going to come out till, I don't know when, I guess the end of February or early March, the budget be approved that would include an extra use allowance at that point, assuming it does. Magistrate Hounds.
I'm throwing out a hypothetical scenario. If we're willing to do this, why would we want to pay the interest if we have the cash? I mean, an option, why?
I guess what we would do is, we're gonna have, when the bids all come in, the cost of the building is there, we would, just pony up the difference between the amount that, they've authorized us to borrow and we not pay any interest. We
I mean, if
wouldn't
that's a-
string it
that's a
out over
route,
20 years, we just pay it up front.
Yeah, because I mean, we would save, I'm sorry, Stan, what was your number on the interest? You said 2.6?
0.206. In a nutshell, what works, fiscal court is writing the bills, and we will bid this hopefully around April and then, let's say we get on the $1.6 million, we'll maximize the amount that we can borrow, maybe it's a little plus minus, so we get $26 million to reimburse fiscal court for what it lays out. Then the difference is how much do we really lay out? Is it 28 million or what? And that's where, then we can look at, we do have the cash reserves to pay that out of cash.
And then the other thing is, I mean, if we tighten our purse strings a little bit, and I agree with you, Judge, we're not trying to put in Formica countertops, but there are other fits and finishes that we may look at that would be still very nice, but not be the same expense as another fit and finish. I think that there's some dollars that could be saved there. I don't have an idea how much, because I'm not as involved in the process as you've been. You would probably know that better than I would, but there does seem to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of big numbers being moved around.
I think the biggest opportunity for cost savings we have is just like when we did the detention center. It had contingencies in there, and different vendors kept approaching us for change orders, which that's what drives up, trying to eat up that contingency.
Right.
We successfully had we had a few change orders, but they were small, and so we brought that project in under budget by really staying on top of change orders. We got $2 million for contingencies. I talked to Ware this morning saying, the people that bid this, you gotta make sure they're not low bid contractors that immediately gonna come back and say, oh, I left this out, and want a change order. You gotta make sure everything's included in there. We've gotta control.
Well, I think one of the issues is when, not if,
Yep.
when you're gonna hit the rock.
Yeah.
I mean, that may eat up a lot of the contingency money pretty quick. Anybody that builds in Oldham County, hoe ram seems to be just as prevalent in digging a basement as a front end loader.
There's no basement.
I understand, but you're still got to dig footers, and you're still going to put the pilings in.
Well, in the event that we, let's say, followed up on Magistrate Hound's suggestion that, we might just pony up the difference lump sum at the end, when is that end? When would we, if the legislature came through with nothing, when would we have to pony that up?
It would be at the very end of the construction, because they'll be making demands for payments along the way, so it's when we finally pay that last retainage to people and stuff is when we won't have money.
We're talking about maybe 2.5 years from now,
Long way out.
not next week. Magistrate Tyson.
If I can go back, I think there is, and I'll ask the question, is there is an option that we let the AOC build the building at no cost to us, so that we're not obligating the taxpayers to Oldham County for any money. That it's their building, and that if we don't do any of the additions, then they put up the courthouse to do their court operations. Is that an accurate statement?
Not exactly. What it is that Oldham County owns the building. It's our building, but they have agreed through the process to rent the building from us for the next 20 years at a certain rent, at the $1.6 million a year rental.
Yeah, and I understand that, but if they have taken the full obligation on the debt, then we're just carrying the mortgage and selling off and brokering off we're
Right now,
funding it. But I know that we're going to make the payments, but they're going to make their payments to us. So the rent's going to cover our payments, in a layman's
now,
term.
all estimates are that the $1.6 million on the original courthouse without the moving historic about covers it, okay? So it's real close, okay?
Yeah.
And so that, based on estimates and no surprises, your statement is approximately true.
Yeah,
If we
that's what
don't
I'm trying
move
to
the
say.
courthouse.
And phrase it in layman terms for the people that may listen to us will understand what we're talking about. And then whether so there's an option that if we let them build the courthouse and take whatever they want, then we get the courthouse with no obligation to the residents of Oldham County.
Well, okay, the committee, public, whatever,
The
PD.
Project Development Board.
They are the ones building the building and stuff, so we have to control our own costs. The state, but based on estimates, what the state will pay will cover that cost.
Yes.
But if we bring it in a lot higher, then, they won't cover it. But based on estimates, we're about even right now, where we build the new courthouse and the payments cover the debt payments.
Okay, Measure Greenwell.
Thank you, Judge. Having built 70 courthouses in the state of Kentucky, has there been a history of eating up the contingencies or them coming in even or under or what? I mean, we should have some history about what's happened. I know it's not the same construction company every time, but what's been the...
There's been lawsuits over some of the cost overruns of courthouses.
I'm surprised.
Okay. Okay, and a firm that I don't know what to say, but there was one firm that got sued that had done several of them, and they were the masters of the change order.
And they're not our firm, right?
No,
We don't have a construction firm yet. We have a construction manager has been hired to make sure that the construction company actually does exactly what the specs call for.
And I might say that I think we've gotten the right one. They just have a really good reputation. Second thing is, whether we vote today let's say today that we vote to do this, and then let's say that the legislature may come through and help us out to some extent, then the historic preservationist people are off the hook. They'll never donate a single penny if they know that this is covered one way or the other.
Well, they wouldn't know till later, but that's probably true in point. But I've contacted Preservation Kentucky, have heard nothing back. Tried to contact the Strobel Barkley law firm. I did see an email that Mr. Barkley sent to John Carter, who I believe is out of town, asking Mr. Carter if Mr. Barkley could talk to me. He feels that talking to me without the permission of our Project Development Board attorney is inappropriate. And but that wouldn't stop him, in my estimation, from having someone other than their attorney talk to me if there was someone else out there that would call. I really don't want to be pessimistic about donations, but we had a lot of enthusiasm from people inside Oldham County and from outside, from within Kentucky and further out yet, who are preservationists that were very active in trying to raise the issue about maintaining and saving this second oldest courthouse in Kentucky. I understand that, and I would like to say that if we do maintain that, I want it to be the best it can be. It is a beautiful site we have there now. That site is going to change no matter what, because we're going to have a different structure behind it. But I forget, what was your first comment there? I lost track of something.
Well, the first
Cost
one was-
overruns. Well, we don't know. I mean, the thing about it is, what we have been told is that we are unique in the sense that AOC has never run into this problem before in the previous 70 courthouses that they have built. They have taken down buildings, put up new buildings all across in Kentucky. This is the first place where they've run into a buzzsaw of opposition on doing what is to be done. And as far as moving it out of LaGrange and keeping that, a lot of impractical ideas that have been offered that if we're actually people took them up on it and went somewhere else, you only get one chance to do this right. And we want to keep downtown LaGrange as vibrant as we can with people coming there. We don't have a use for that building. No one wants to be left with the maintenance of that building. It won't stand there without maintenance in the future, and somebody else will take it. Well, those somebody else's they get pretty scarce when it comes time to write the check. Magistrate Dye.
Longston.
Oh, as you know, I'm usually the guy that the glass is half full. The cost of building the building, I'm gonna go back in time a little bit here. The cost to build a new building was, I'm just gonna use X's and Y's here, because the numbers really don't mean anything today, because those numbers are just numbers we're talking about. The building's gonna cost, before we got into the preservation thing, was gonna cost X number of dollars. And you said a minute ago that I think Stan said a minute ago, it almost covered the monthly rent or annual rent, almost covered the cost. But almost covered means the rest of it was ours, right? Is that right?
All right, well, the AOC is not, I don't think anybody expects a perfect bullseye on this, but
Right.
they can live within a certain amount of overage in unexpected circumstances, but what they told me was this is too much to take to the Court Standards Committee.
Well,
They won't approve it.
My concern is, number one, that the new building, and y'all have talked about fit and finish and Formica versus New York State granite. I get that. Now, I've only built one house in my life, and I guarantee you, the allowances that are given to you are not anywhere close to what you probably going to want to put in this, okay? So, first off, the cost of building is going to go up, okay? Then you add the preservation piece to it. And they said it's going to cost how much, Stan, to move the building?
About $2 million all in.
Now, that's all right, so that's part of the going up part of the price. Now, I read the Oldham Air article about, it's a little, one minute it's part of the building, next minute it's all of the building. I know the jail's not going to get moved, the old jail, that's gone. Before I make my next statement, I'm going to ask one question, because I'm not clear on this, and I've been asked several people, and I have not got an answer, since we're right here all together, so we can all hear it the same way. Are they going to move the old building and build the new one around it, or incorporate it into the construction of the new one, or is it kind of like Lincoln's birthplace in Springfield, where they built where they got his little cabin inside of a building. Now, what exactly were we doing?
The current plan is to move the 5,200 square foot historic front section of the building to the south and west, so it centers on the block. The new building will be built directly behind it and will incorporate the old structure as part of the facility. You walk in the front door there and you'll walk right into the
All right, so
the rest of the building. It's not
So
going
we're
to be separate.
saving a section of it,
Yeah,
portion of it.
it's the front section, the oldest section there, and it will have, on the first floor, you'll have the guard bailiff stations when you come in. There will be some lobby area on the first floor. Stairway goes to the second floor, or you can proceed on into the rest of the building. From there, the courtrooms are laid out to be straight ahead, and on either side of in the new building, when you come through the existing building, the stairway will take you to the second floor, and on the second floor, there will be drug court offices, and a couple other offices are
Okay,
built in. So
okay.
that will be a functioning building. AOC
So
will
you-
not pay for a gift shop or, just a historic place to stop and look around. No, it's got to be part of the functioning building to be
So
covered.
you're gonna walk in the front door, you're gonna transition to an old part to get to the new part.
That's correct.
All right.
Right.
Then my question is basic, why do we have to move the whole building when we only need a part of the building?
That's all we're moving as a part of the building.
That's not what, now, here again,
Yes, it is.
that's what the point of my
exactly right.
question today. Maybe I'm the only guy on this court that's heard it, but every time it's in the Oldham Mirror, I've heard it here, they're gonna move the old courthouse. They don't say they're gonna move the old portion of the old courthouse. We moving part of it, all of it, some of it? What are we doing?
Okay, we are moving the front door where you come in, and then the area right above it, there is an old section from the 1830s.
I get what you're
that
saying.
part is the only part that's going to be kept. Everything else, the section that was built in the mid-90s, plus the jail, all, main part of it, there's 25,000 square feet in the entire courthouse, 5,200 at the front would be kept and moved and incorporated into the new building. It cannot stay where it is because there isn't enough space left behind the building where it sits to actually build in the new building in a way that is not, is nice layout for the community. If you remember one of the earliest versions of, we've looked at several different versions of this. One of the earliest versions was keeping the old courthouse exactly where it is, but that required building a 3-story building behind it
yeah, I remember
that
that.
we thought was ugly and overpowered all the other 2-story buildings including this one. It'd be as tall as, the building we're in here right now is actually taller than the front of our building, but it's not so noticeable because it's going downhill and but that one would overpower, you'd look out the window from my office up to see the third story across the street, and we just thought it was not the type of building that should go in downtown LaGrange for the next 100 years.
So, with that being said, now that I'm clear on what we are not moving, because the article wasn't clear, I've never heard anybody, I've asked people here about it, I get mixed answers. I want to make sure I got it straight. So in other words, this cost of moving this portion of a building is basically, for all intents and purposes, our first change order. That'd be correct?
No, because it's in the plan.
It's in the plan.
It came into the plan. I wouldn't call it a change order, I guess.
I guess it is because
Yeah, well, you could, but we were told that strongly suggested to us that if we came with a 2-story building to the Court Standards Facility Committee, we wouldn't get it approved if we didn't keep the old structure. So we backed up. We voted 5-1 not to keep the old structure, but we backed up when we heard we were very likely would not be approved in Frankfurt for that by this 10-person committee chaired by the Chief Justice. And that's the person that gave the information to one of our committee members. So We swallowed hard and went in for a redesign to include that, include the old
Then what
structure.
you're saying is if we don't do this, then we're not going to get,
Well, I don't know. I mean, if we could still go over there with a two-story building, but we just have to say we tried but couldn't make the budget, and the fiscal court wouldn't wouldn't stand the
I
cost
just
of
thought you,
moving the old
but I
building.
thought you just said that you weren't going to get this approved in Frankfurt if you didn't add the old portion, the
Yes, that's what I said, but we've had subsequent development since then, and that subsequent development is that we've tried but hit a brick wall.
okay, so
So
in other
that-
words, it's basically,
If,
we can have,
if the brick wall is here this morning.
okay. So basically, the choice is this, you go with the old the original two-story design, or we spend the additional money and incorporate portion of the old house, the old building into the two-story design or the three-story design?
Two-story.
Two-story design.
Right, two-story. Right. We go with the possibility that we'll have to, the county will have to make good to have to contribute something, and that something is, could be up to a couple of million. I don't think they're asking for more than what the cost estimate of the $2 million that's on here to move that building. They're
Okay.
just saying that they'd like us to be good for it if it can't be generated somewhere else and from the legislature.
I wouldn't look forward to any of that happening.
Well, I think there's a chance the legislature will do it. I feel, at least some degree of confidence that that could happen.
Well, that's one of us that does. Now, last thing. So basically, today, there was a comment was made that we should pay cash for it. I don't have a problem paying cash because you said the interest rates. I'm kind of a cash guy myself. What I'm concerned with is, we can only spend our reserves once. It's dead, So we've got a lot of other things, as you well know, from the budget process, that are somewhere in the mix of getting done. If you spend this $2 million, is there going to be something else going to be pushed further down the road? Or maybe not done at all, or is there going to be a tax increase because we say, well, we've over programmed, so either we don't do this.
Don't say that.
I don't think so. I don't see it. We've got other variables out there that obviously, the Oldham Road and Oldham Reserve, the broadband initiative, the animal control building, those are all things that are all subject to other than building the road, I guess. Eden Parkway is committed, but we're talking about, if it's a lump sum coming up a couple of years from now, maybe, if we're required to go that far. So
Well,
I really don't see where that'll be.
But you've taken all this into consideration, because
Yes.
you've never come to me and said, we've got this problem over here, and said, we need to be maybe thinking about what the backlash could be from this. So at this juncture, you don't feel like there's going to be a backlash?
Well, I think there could be, but it's like everything else. Some people want to spend this money to keep this building. There are other people that don't want to keep it. So you can't get on the right side of everybody regardless of what you do.
Well, I think the most important thing, I think it faces this court today, I'm not going to take a position on preservation or not. I think the most important thing today in this court is the broadband initiative. That's where I think our energy should be focused at. These other things have to be done, but I think that's the most important thing, and that's where the money should be allocated more quickly to. So, I mean, I don't quite understand why why we're doing it, because some people want it, but I think if we don't do it, I think we're going to end up in a lawsuit.
So,
Magistrate Logston.
Well, there's one thing about politics. You're going to make half the people happy and half the people upset. So, I'm gonna say my piece, and then I'm gonna have Brent make the motion. But we're arguing over. Let's just say it's going to cost more. We're arguing over $3 million. over the next 200 years this building will be sitting here. We spend 1.9 million or whatever we're going to spend on John Black Center that might be there for 20, 30 years and bulldoze down. It's my opinion, and I'm a vote for it, that we move the courthouse that's been there since the 1800s and incorporate it into the new building that'll be there for another 200 years. That's just my opinion. The jail was going to, at one time, was going to cost 12.5 million, ended up being 25 million. So, we've spent money on things that I would love to preserve the courthouse that's there now. I love history. And 200 years from now, or let's say 50 years from now, people are going to be happy that that portion of the courthouse was saved. I just think if we can spend 1.9 million on a room on the back of a John Black Center, we can come up with $2.5 million for this. That's just my opinion. Bob, you might not agree with me, but that's just my opinion.
Judge.
Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. Several things are flying through my mind while I'm sitting here listening. I guess the most disconcerting is hearing all the concerns of the magistrates on an issue that has been in the works for nearly 24 months. I believe I'm the only magistrate that showed enough interest in it to attend some of the meetings of the Project Development Board. I think, well, except for Chris. Chris was there for a couple of them, maybe. But where was all this interest from fiscal court in the last 24 months when this was being debated, discussed, vetted thoroughly by professionals? And we're coming here at the 11th hour. You talk about Monday morning quarterbacking. This is it, guys and lady. I made a point of contacting the Historical Society yesterday and inviting them to the meeting today. And I guess it's not important enough for them to attend, to see what we're doing and to speak either for it or against it. And that really disappoints me, because that was one of the driving groups that helped override the 5-1 vote earlier by the Project Development Board. Part of the opposition to removing the historic courthouse came from a former citizen of this county who no longer lives in this county. I'm not sure her vote should count that much, but apparently it did. We had architects from as far away as New England. Wasn't there somebody here from Yale or Harvard? We had attorneys from different firms. We had structural people from God only knows where. And where are they? Here we are trying to make a decision that affects everything that they were concerned about, and I hear crickets. There's nobody here. I'm not sure that this decision affects the overall population of Oldham County. I've heard nothing from my constituents in the 3rd District outside the old LaGrange area. I'm not sure the people in Westport, Turner State, some of these other places, I don't think they care about it that much. I don't think members of the panel have heard that much from their constituents, or else we would have had more interest in this in the last several months. It's, as we decided, it was discussed at one of the meetings, the historical aspect of this is the location of the courthouse in central downtown LaGrange. That's historic, as much as the building is. You've not heard the experts talk about the fires that affected the building. There's disagreement as to whether it's still structurally sound. People say they think it is, but you don't know it is until you actually run tests on the materials in there. You can still see some of the rafters that were burned. I question their structural ability. But I think our role is to do what is best overall for the citizens of Oldham County. And I'm not sure that committing to an additional wide open $2 million is responsible on our part. There are 8 exclusions shown on this estimate. We have no idea what those exclusions are going to amount to. The big one, millwork. Anybody checked on the price of wood lately, if you can even get it? They're building houses now using aluminum studs, rafters, and floor joists. So we don't know what these exclusions are gonna amount to, and they could be significant.
And some of them, to your point, are gonna be high dollar because of just the nature.
Absolutely.
Hazardous materials disposal, bird droppings, we already paid money right next door to remove those, and we're all shocked at that price.
But we had the judge explained a lot of things that really were helpful. He did not explain the composition of the project development board that's set up by statute, not by us. It's controlled by the AOC, not by us. We got representation with the county judge being the head of that committee, one public member, Ann Brown, one member representing circuit court, district court, and the legal community.
Barry Baxter.
Barry Baxter with the legal community, Judge Conrad with circuit court, Judge Crosby with district court. These people spent hours and hours and hours going through all this. One was opposed from the beginning to doing anything that would remove the courthouse, but then the Chief Justice, John Minton, weighed in on it and said that he thought we ought to keep it. And he's got a larger vote than anybody else does. But now we've got these other contingencies and issues that have come up, and perhaps his mindset is going to be different. I know Judge Vogel's been trying to contact him to see if he's aware of this and does it change his position. But I just don't think it's very prudent of us to commit the county to another $2 million plus on something that is this debatable. Thank you.
Judge Conrad is no longer on the committee. She's been replaced by Judge Goodwin. Judge Conrad retired, and so Judge Goodwin was the next in line circuit court judge to take that position. The other individuals on the committee are Judge Crosby, district judge, chief district judge, and also Steve Kalin, clerk of court. Okay, Magistrate Hawkins.
I was going to wait till hearing the motion before making my statement. I also attended project development board meetings to clarify that. When we were previously presented with demolishing the courthouse building, I was in opposition of tearing it down, and that was due to pushback by those in the preservation groups, pushback by those in historic groups, and also constituents. And I asked at the time for the project development board to try to look for a compromise. Albeit this is a costly one, I believe it to be a satisfactory compromise, and I will vote to support this.
Right, Magistrate Likens.
Judge, I have major concerns over the long-term maintenance of this building. Will it be occupied at all? Will it be available for tours? Or I just know a building that's just sitting there, Mother Nature will knock it down if it's not maintained on a regular basis. So
I'm not sure I understand completely your question there.
Is this building that is going to be moved, is it going to be occupied at all, or is it just going to be a
Yeah,
building?
it's going to be a functioning part of the courthouse.
It will be a functioning part of the new courthouse.
Right. It's it's going to be the front door, and on the second floor there will be drug court and two other offices on the second floor of the building up there. First floor will have a security entrance, and the security offices will be on the first floor to the left of the magnetometer. So it's not just going to sit there. It's going to be a courthouse. It's going to be a functioning part of the building.
I think we've kind of worn this thing out to where everybody should have made an opinion by now, so I'm just going to make a motion that we approve spending up to $2,410,000 to move the existing courthouse to a new
Second.
location and incorporate it into the design of the new courthouse building.
I'll second that.
would you amend your motion to say you approve spending the money if no other source of revenue is forthcoming?
I will make that amendment to my motion, please,
I mean, I'd like us to
including that.
keep the option open here that we are looking for other sources, but if we can't get it, we would, supplement it or stand the gap up to that amount. And I think that's all they're asking. They're not asking.
I'll second the amendment.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this? Measure Tice.
We've only got a certain amount of line of credit in cash. The AOC is their responsibility. And if we obligated the citizens of Oldham County to pay part of this when they don't have to, concerns me.
You finished? All right. Anyone else? All right, Denise, will you call the roll,
Do we
please?
have a roll call vote on this, Judge?
Yeah, we are.
Just said that.
Magistrate Logston.
Yes.
Magistrate Hawkins.
I thought you said
Yes.
Likens.
Magistrate Greenwell.
Yes.
Magistrate Tice.
No?
Magistrate Likens.
Yes?
Magistrate Harrison.
No.
Magistrate Hounds.
Yes.
Magistrate Dye. Judge Vogel.
I don't have to vote.
Money for the big chair.
No,
Judge,
no. It's already passed 5-3.
Judge, I believe under parliamentary procedure, you do not have to vote.
Right, I know.
does not.
I know. I'm going to abstain.
I've done-
Although I would vote to go forward. I don't mind. I'll vote yes. In other words, I was somebody who voted to take this building down to begin with. And I wanted to go forward. But we're so far into this, and, a number of people have spoken about the historical nature, and I understand this, and I've had it said to me, well, we got a guy from Minnesota, even though I've lived here 45 years, they said, well, we got a guy from Minnesota who wants to knock down our courthouse. Well, I've paid a lot of taxes here over 45 years. I have some ability to do the right thing, or at least have an opinion. But I was in favor of taking it down to begin with. Now we've got it, and I have to be in favor of making it the best we can be. And so my vote was not, the decision was made before it came to me anyway here by 5-3 vote. So I'll go with the majority on it. Okay. All right. Our next item on the agenda here today is to the contract amendment for the Oldham County Detention Center. Is that right?
No.
What is that?
Dispatch.
OCD, Oldham County Dispatch, okay. Magistrate Hounds, do you want to bring that up, what that's about?
Sure. We entered into a contract with Radio Communication Systems several months ago to build basically a point-to-point network between 3 sites: OCD, the Kentucky Acres, Oldham County Water Tower, and North Oldham Fire Tower that they lease to cell phone carriers on their old property of their old station. In moving forward with the project, we were made aware that the tower at North Oldham was going to fail a structural test and needed some extensive work done to it, and therefore at that time we were unable to complete the project. We went into emergency mode to try to figure out how we were going to be able to complete the project, because we had couple $100,000 in equipment we were prepared to use. Not all that was going to be hung on each one of the towers. Most of that stuff goes on the ground. But anyway, so we came up with a plan to put in a non-public safety point-to-point network that would work between the North Oldham Tower and the OCD Tower. That's actually the second page of the documents that are on your link, and that proposal was for $9,555. Since that time, through efforts of the Director of Oldham County Dispatch, Tim Keel, and others, we were able to get an agreement by the North Oldham Fire Department and their engineer to put the equipment up on the tower that we were going to permanently use and not put up this patch equipment. But that does require us to do 2 additional tower climbs and to have a little bit of project management work. And these tower climbing, folks, are very expensive. As you can see, what we're asking for today is for the judge to sign the amendment for $7,853 to put the permanent equipment up, one piece of the permanent equipment up on the North Oldham Tower. And then at a later date, we would come back and do another tower climb after the tower has been recertified, which could be, I don't know, we've talked about Tim saying 6 months. I'm going to say 8 months, unless you already added 2 months to that, because we've seen these towers take a little bit longer to be repaired than what we've been originally told. A lot of it's weather dependent, but my motion would be that we ask the judge to sign this for the $7,853 so we can move forward with the project.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded, that I be allowed to sign this contract for the tower work. Is there discussion? Magistrate Hawkins?
Who originally erected the tower, and do they have any responsibility with securing it so that it is safe?
So the towers are like any other structure. They require maintenance to be done to them, and they have to bring the tower up to standards in order to keep the cellular communications equipment on it. I think I said that correctly.
Excuse my tower. I've been out to Kentucky Acres this morning at that tower. I don't know who originally built the tower, Magistrate Hawkins, but pretty much the same deal with OCD. Verizon built our tower, and then they turn it over to us, where we take ownership of that tower, conduct the maintenance on it. Verizon came back, much like they're doing over at North Oldham, and they want to add more equipment to it. So in order to do that, since that tower structurally has failed, I mean, the structure hasn't failed, but their classification says, no, you can't add any more weight to this tower. Then they're going to come back in and upgrade the tower, the same as they did with OCD. I don't know all the cell carriers on the North Oldham Tower. Verizon is one of them, but I think there's several. I don't know the other ones. But they'll come in and do the work. I'm sorry?
It's a loaded tower.
It is. They'll come in and do the work after all the engineers get through and do the specs on it, and then the tower will be upgraded.
So in that case, does Verizon rent that space on the tower from the county?
No, it's not a county tower. The North Oldham Tower is
Goes
owned
to North Oldham.
by the North Oldham Fire Department.
So Verizon pays the North Oldham Fire Department to,
I don't know the
For rent?
financial arrangements that North Oldham has
Melissa's
with.
saying yes. Okay.
I don't know.
This is also, just as a point, even adding the $7,000 to the project, we're still under budget from what we originally sought after.
Magistrate Logston?
Yes, I will vote for this, just simply because I'm not going to leave our guys unprotected. But I don't understand why Oldham County Fiscal Court has to pay for all of this. And the fire departments, which I pay a city or a tax to, don't also help contribute to this. I understand that, again, I will vote for this because I want to protect the people that this is supposed to be doing. But I don't understand why we don't get help from the fire department to pay for part of these bills when they're also benefiting from this. It's just, I know, Chris, you and I argue about this all the time, but
North Oldham has agreed to come
I
up
understand we are the ones that are controlling it because of the dispatch, but the fire departments are also getting benefit from this. So
North Oldham has agreed in this situation to help defer some of this $7,000 cost, I believe $2,500. So there is a small contribution from North Oldham, but
Measure die.
My understanding was this money was, as Magistrate Hound said, was for the 2 climbs, climb up and do your stuff, and then come back again and do it again. It was basically a labor charge. There was no equipment basically in this number here, correct? I mean, no big, like a dish or something.
no, that's in the original contract.
Okay, yeah, this is basically just a labor,
Yes,
more
sir.
or less.
Yes, sir.
So by doing this, is to Magistrate Logston's point, we're not really, in this money here, we're not improving someone else's property.
No.
This is strictly to go up and put what we want to put up there.
Yes.
The way it needs to be done.
Yes, sir.
So, I don't quite understand the point where the fire department, I'm glad the fire department feels as good as they do, but it is their tire, and it's kind of like anything else. If they got space they can rent on it and generate revenue, I mean, they're trying to recoup the cost of building the tire, I would think. Okay, all right, I thought it was just a labor charge, my understanding. All right, thank you.
All right, any further discussion on this item? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, I think we're at the conclusion of our meeting here. If there are no individuals who've come in for a public comment, and I don't see any here, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.